Goeienaand, good evening fellow South Africans and citizens of the world from a beautifully warm Fiji. And I've been taking a break on the videos, as you're well aware, but there's one bit of news that I have to share with you, and it involves a particular state-owned enterprise in South Africa called South African Airways. And several weeks ago I said that South African Airways is the canary in the cage when it comes to state-owned enterprises. And clearly, after what's happened in the last couple of weeks and what I'm going to be telling you about now, that airline is doomed. The only way they can save South African Airways now is by selling it off to someone who's competent to run it and getting rid of BEE in South Africa. If they don't get rid of BEE in South Africa, that airline is going to move offshore to somewhere like Australia, where it'll be run from, which would be a huge financial loss to South Africa. And that's the only way they'll be able to run it, because if you do it under BEE, it's self-evident what happens. Look what happened to South African Airways. It's a system that has proven itself a failure, yet the ANC government and this idiot called Cyril Hippo Eyes Ramaphosa cannot see through what he's doing to his own country by enforcing black economic empowerment. He is a complete and utter disgrace. All right, let's get to the facts. Now, the facts are very simple. In South Africa, there are reports about this travel agency, just a travel agency called Flight Centre. Okay, it's just an Australian travel agency called Flight Centre that has said it's not going to sell South African Airways tickets anymore, with good reason. Now, the story that is not being told is the size of Flight Centre, because Flight Centre isn't just some little Mickey Mouse operation, it is a huge operation. And I'll just give you some information on that. Okay, Flight Centre. This is from the official Flight Centre webpage. Flight Centre Travel Group is the largest retail travel agency in Australia. It was founded in 1982 and it has its headquarters in Brisbane. FTCG has approximately, now wait for it, Flight Centre has approximately 2,800 stores and offices under various retail and corporate brands. That is huge. South African Airways have lost that market. 2,800 travel agencies, not just in Australia and South Africa, but around the world. Let me tell you where Flight Centre operates from. And they've got hundreds of travel agencies in each one of these countries. Australia, of course, that's where the head office is. Canada, major tourist link to South Africa. South African Airways market gone. Hong Kong, major tourist market to Hong Kong, gone. That's South African Airways again. India, think about it, India, huge market of Indians coming. There's a huge number of Indians in KwaZulu-Natal, gone. Ireland, gone. These are all countries that have hundreds of Flight Centre branches around them. New Zealand, gone. South Africa, well, we heard about South Africa, but that's a tiny drop in the ocean of the number of Flight Centre branches that are going to be saying to travelers, no, we will not sell you a South African Airways ticket. United Kingdom, huge market. Flight Centre saying to travelers who are flying from the UK to South Africa, no, you can't fly on South African Airways if you book through us. Okay? And then probably the biggest of the lot, the United States of America. Again, Flight Centre have hundreds of offices in all the major cities. Very, very popular travel agency, which is now turning off the taps when it comes to dealing with South African Airways. This is a huge, huge loss. South African Airways, as it is, cannot continue to survive. It's lost a huge percentage of its market. Now, let me give you the reports from the media. Okay, this one here. Strike pushes South African Airways to the brink of collapse. 3 insurers stop covering its tickets. Government holding talks about the airline's future, I bet. Analysts say moves by insurers hugely significant. Now, what are we talking about here? 3 travel insurance companies in South Africa have stopped covering tickets used by South African Airways against insolvency, further clouding the outlook for the struggling state-run airline. The decision by Santam Travel Insurance Consultants, or TIC, to drop South African Airways prompted Australian travel agency Flight Centre Travel Group to stop selling tickets for the airline this week. Now, that's your 2,800 Flight Centre travel agencies around the world no longer selling South African Airways tickets. Think of the impact of that one travel agency on South African Airways. The company that administers Holland Travel Insurance and an insurance saleswoman at Bright Insurance in South Africa both told Reuters on Friday they had also excluded South African Airways from their travel supply insolvency coverage earlier this month. South African Airways spokesman Tlali declined to comment when called by Reuters on Friday and did not respond to email questions. Neither Finance Minister Tito Mboweni, spokeswoman, nor Public Enterprises Minister Pravin Gordhan, spokesman, answered their phones when called by Reuters. They've all gone into the hiding mode. You know, that's what they do. When the turnaround doesn't work, they go into the good old, I'm not here, run around, run around, run around. This is not called management. This is called idiocy. But anyway. South African Airways has not made a profit since 2011 and is struggling with an unprofitable route network, aging and inefficient airplanes, and a bloated workforce. Yes, 957 employees for every single plane, compared to something like Qantas, where it's about 150 employees for every single plane. Work that one out. South African Airways has not made a profit since 2011. Despite bailouts of more than 20 billion rand, or 1.4 billion US dollars over the past 3 years, rating agencies regularly cite ailing state companies such as South African Airways and power utility Eskom as being amongst the triggers and the biggest risks to South Africa's public finances and potential triggers for further downgrades in the country's sovereign credit rating. Now, imagine how Moody's are going to be looking at this with South African Airways. It just demonstrates the incompetence, the corruption. It is a canary in the room. It's a small state-owned enterprise, but it kind of gives you a mirror image of what's going on with Eskom and the other state-owned enterprises. Even though Eskom now is run by a white fella. Yeah, a white fella. 27 black CEOs turned down the job as Eskom CEO before they eventually handed or gave this white fella, who's apparently very well qualified, the chance to run it. And do you know what happened when he accepted the job? All the trade union movements like COSATU said, no way, we're not going to accept a white guy. This goes against transformation. This goes against Cyril Ramaphosa's promise to transform business in South Africa and get blacks leading every single business. Well, guess where that's going to take you, idiots? COSATU, you guys have got holes in your head. There's the old L factor missing, the logic factor. You can't see the combination between black management and collapse. And you can't see how things have changed since 1994, when the management was competent, there was no corruption, and things ran so smoothly it was just perfect to watch. Today it's a complete disgrace. Now, let's get back to this. South African Airways failed to pay employees their full salaries this month. Well, they've been on strike anyway. And said it had almost no cash left after an 8-day strike over pay in November forced it to cancel hundreds of flights. Guy Leitch, an aviation analyst who edits the South African Flying magazine, said the moves by insurers and Flight Centre to drop the airline were hugely significant, and they are. Leitch said, no one managing South African Airways, from Mr. Minister Gordon down, anticipated the flight of confidence that the strike would have. Now, it wasn't just a strike. Let's remember that called into question too was South African Airways, technical on a number of fronts. And I've covered those in detail in the past, so I won't do that again. But you had Comair taking their business away from South African Airways Technical. They were that worried about their maintenance. In a letter to clients dated November the 28th, Flight Centre said TIC's underwriters were no longer willing to cover South African Airways under their travel supply insolvency benefit due to doubts about long-term viability of the airliner. The letter, seen by Reuters, reads, Flight Centre Travel Group South Africa has made a decision to no longer sell South African Airways until such time as we have obtained certainty in the market. Now, this is going to have huge ramifications, ripple-on effects right through the travel agency market. Other travel agencies are going to be looking at this and saying, whoa, we don't want to go there. And it's understandable, because if they book a ticket for one of their clients in South African Airways and South African Airways goes belly up, who's liable? You know, you can understand the problem here. South African Airways' sovereign debt is already rated junk by S&P Global and Fitch Ratings, while Moody's still ranks it as investment grade, helping to prevent a spike in borrowing costs, typically sparked by a downgrade from all three agencies. An SAA board member told Reuters last week that the airline might have to be liquidated if the government didn't give it more state guarantees to unlock lending from commercial banks. Finance Minister Mboweni has yet to authorize more state guarantees and has said South African Airways should be shut down, but Gordon has said he wants to save it. So that's where it stands right now. Now let's think about this. They've really only got one of two options left. The one option is they just sell it off and declare it bankrupt, and all those people who've got outstanding debt, or they've got outstanding debts from South African Airways, well, they can kiss that money goodbye. The other option is for them to sell it off to another airline, like Ethiopian Airlines or Qantas or whoever it might be. That makes a lot more sense. But there's an elephant in the room, guys, and this is the reason why it ain't gonna happen. And it's called BEE, Black Economic Empowerment. This is going to be a very, very interesting test case. Any buyer of South African Airways is going to demand that they are BEE exclusive, that they do not have to follow the BEE rules if South African Airways continues to be run from South Africa. They're not going to buy an airline that's just completely failed under the BEE strategy. They won't do it. So one of the conditions of sale will be, because Ramaphosa, old Hippo Eyes, is so dumb he can't see through his own black privilege. He is so dumb that he doesn't realize that BEE is a cause for South Africa's ills. Or maybe he's not that dumb. Maybe he's just so politically tied to people like Casato and that communist arm of the ANC that he's got his hands tied behind his back. So he's just taking the country into a big sinkhole. And it's a disgrace that he will continue to run as president knowing this is the case and continuing to push things like BEE. So, look, what you're looking at here with South African Airways is the fruits of black economic empowerment. That's the simplest way of putting it. South African Airways collapse are the fruits of black economic empowerment. And it's a canary in the cage, and if you look at any municipality run under BEE, and they're all over the country, they're just like South African Airways. They're in a state of collapse. One common denominator, BEE. Look at any other state-owned enterprise. They're all in a state of collapse. One common denominator, BEE. I wish someone would bring out a song about BEE and how it's totally destroyed South Africa. I think that would really hit the charts and hit the mark. And if someone amongst my subscribers is a musician and is able to create such a song, please send it to me and we'll publish it on YouTube. All right, guys, please don't fly South African Airways. You know the message. Please remember to subscribe to this channel. Please like this video. Please ring the bell. Please share this video. And above all, stay safe. Bye for now.